This is always my. This is my most favorite kind of Joker. The psychological warfare type Joker, the Hannibal Lecter type Joker. You know, people come in and they think they can match wits with the Joker, and everyone ends up just getting eaten alive by him. And I was
Yeah.
thinking as you were talking, I was thinking about how the Joker can't dine on Batman alone.
Right.
Like he needs other food to eat. You know what I mean? So whether it was Harley Quinn or this doctor or others who have tried with the Joker, like he's always up for the game because a man can't dine on cheeseburgers alone. There has to be something else. And while the Joker loves Batman to the degree that a psycho can love anybody, you know, like he is Joker and Batman are like Frodo and fucking Gollum. They are just
Oh yeah.
intrinsically tied together, and they're both going. They are destined to go over the falls in the lava. You know, to at the end of all things. Um, but no matter how obsessed the Joker is with Batman, because the Batman is just so like you can temporarily break Batman, but he always finds a way back, and he's always thwarting Joker's plans. Um, it was when we talked about this. You asked me before, like, what other Joker stuff have we did? It wasn't necessarily a Joker book, but this is the conversation we had with Injustice, where the Joker got kind of bored with
Oh
Batman, and he started
yeah.
fucking with Superman, and Superman was so easy to push over the edge.
Oh yeah.
Tiny little push, a little murder of Lois Lane, a little, a little nuking of Metropolis, nothing big, and Superman
Nothing big.
becomes and Superman becomes a tyrant.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that made Superman dies, and he becomes a crazy tyrant, turning half of the DC universe against him. It was the Joker who did that, and was happy
Yep.
to die. Was happy to die for the cause. If you
Mm-hmm.
remember, the way that they did that story, Superman kills him in the interrogation room, and the Joker's laughing the entire time. It's like, I finally I win,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about living. It's not about fulfillment. For Joker, it's about he's a shark. Sharks have to eat. Sharks have to keep swimming, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it. He's a force of destruction. And the way the Joker eats is he turns sane people insane.
Yeah.
And then I always thought the best representation of the Joker on screen. I know some people this is a controversial statement, but Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight to me is
So good.
probably the best interpretation of the Joker character.
Yeah.
His line about I'm like a dog chasing a car. I wouldn't know what to do if I caught it. You
Yeah.
know, it's not about the end game. It's about the journey for Joker. And
Mm-hmm.
so some ne'er do some do-gooder comes and yes, there would be a certain amount of fame and notoriety that would go with curing the Joker. And what's life without challenge? And so, what's the biggest challenge out there? It's the Joker. Let's see if we can, cure this murderous madman. And I do like the concept of what are we doing at Arkham if we're not trying to rehabilitate people?
Right. Right.
Are we just another warehouse of humans?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're not trying to rehabilitate people, I've kind of had this issue working in correctional healthcare for the last 10 years, where it starts to become like, what are we doing here if we're not trying to rehabilitate people? What is the point of this? What is the point of any of it? Is it just to warehouse people and keep them off the street?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's easier ways to do that.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
um and Arkham Asylum is this place where you're supposed to restore people to sanity. And so this guy comes in and he was like, what's the biggest threat out there? It's the Joker. Well, I'm gonna commit myself to helping this guy, and Joker just tears him to pieces.
Yeah. Right.
You
And
don't
he
even know
has
you
no
don't
idea.
even know what's happening.
He
Joker is like quicksand.
Exactly, dude. That is what's great about this book is that it puts you're mostly following Ben throughout his life and his daily routine, and you're thinking, well, everything's just fine, and well, I'm going to root for this guy. He's going to try and change. He's going to try and cure the Joker. But yeah, you're right. You, as the reader, sometimes you have no idea. You just know things are starting to get really weird. Like, what is going on here? Why does this kid have this book?
Yeah.
Why does his family, start looking like the Joker? Why does he not want the kid to go down the basement? I mean, there's just all sorts of things that are really just, this isn't right. Something's wrong. Something is wrong. As I was doing my due diligence in having the AI read the comic and make notes for me, I did, I made sure to tell ChatGPT, I was like, this was a pretty good book. What were your thoughts? So there was a quote. I had to yank it out of there because usually it's just me talking to the AI and getting all my personal, my thoughts out there, and trying to hone everything in. But there's quote that I'm going to quote what ChatGPT said. It said, Ben was doomed from the very first conversation.
Right.
He didn't just talk to the Joker. He let the Joker talk to him. And that was like, oh, wow. You're right. I mean, as soon as the Joker opened his mouth, he started working on him. And you start to see like this stuff that is just kind of, it's breaking Ben as things go forward here. One of my notes down here was that, and I wanted to ask you, do you think Ben was like mentally okay when he sat down to talk with the Joker? Or do you think the Joker was just like this small push that he needed to kind of fall into becoming mad?
There's no way to know that because you don't know enough about Ben before he saw the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
But I would assume, a licensed mental health worker, professional mental health worker, somebody with enough fame and notoriety and professional experience to have gotten the gig to work with the Joker was relatively sane before he got it.
You would think, right?
But I also think that that's what makes the Joker, is to take people who are coming from a good, solid place and shatter them.
Yeah.
Like, you can just imagine, like, you go into this innocently enough, and and the Joker just tells you one lie after another, makes you question your own sanity. Joker is like, not to put too much of a modern coat of paint on it, but he's like the ultimate gaslighter.
Mm.
Gaslighting is the act of making you question your own reality.
Right.
And that's ultimately, the way Joker gets in.
Speaking of, just wait till you get the second episode of Black Mirror. Be ready for that. Gaslighting is that should have been the name of the episode, was gaslighting. It's good. Anyway, okay, all right, yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. He starts talking to you. He starts kind of manipulating you, make you think one thing. Oh, how did you get this book to my son? And one of my favorite parts, of course, is the fact that he thinks he's been there for weeks, and it turns out it's been years that he's been trying to do this over and over and over. So he's lost concept of time. I have a theory. I had this theory, and it kind of falls back on this the question I had for you. Well, it was a theory. I don't think there's anything in the book to kind of support this. There's a point when he's at home, and I mentioned how his son wanted to go down to the basement, and he grabbed his son. And he's like, "Don't ever go down there. Don't go down there. Whatever you do." Now, I thought at first, I was like, okay, he's got like all the Joker files down there or something crazy. And then it kind of occurred to me, like, what if this dude's actually like a legit like serial killer or something? I was thinking maybe that's why he would
go in there. That's where it keeps the bodies.
I was thinking, well, he's already turned. Like again, And I don't know if we ever learn what's down the basement. I feel like we do see some folders and some pictures of the Joker and stuff. But anyway, I remember reading that and going, oh man, maybe he's actually a killer in some way. But yeah, the big reveal when you find out that Ben's been alone this whole time and he's been imagining his wife and son at home, and there's like dishes stacked up on the sink and like nobody's there. I gotta say, I gotta give this thing high marks for that, because I was really into this book. I was sucked into the story. It's only 3 issues long. And I don't think the issues are too long. It was a quick read.
Oh yeah. I breezed by it.
Yeah. There's not, this was definitely a good story told by Jeff Lemire. The art by, oh my goodness, what was her name? Andrea Sorrentino. Lends itself to this story. Like, that is one thing I will definitely say, that you got to pick the good artist for the story that you were going to tell. And this did a good job of doing just that. So that's kind of all the notes that I have here. Any other things that popped up in your mind as far as Joker Killer Smile goes?
I like the book. This is the kind of Joker that I like. It's like I said, it's a short story. It's a very short read. I think the only thing I would say about it is, with a story like this, you never quite know, because now you're dealing with an unreliable narrator, which is, boy,
well, that's coming up.
Yeah, wait till we get to the next book. I wish we could kind of take if you think about like The Usual Suspects, where there's always that scene at the end where you take a step back and you see how Verbal Kent constructed his story,
right?
And it turns out he's Kaiser Sose. It's like,
yep,
they get you right at the end, and they take you back. Like, this is how we got here. These are all the clues, Yeah. There's always that scene at the end of like a lot of these kinds of movies where we have to go back and revisit things. And ooh, did you catch all of these details?
Exactly. A comic book that's
missing from the story.
Yeah, I feel like. Okay, I'll give you that, because you can kind of catch on pretty quickly what's going on. But I don't know. I feel like if we did go back and read it again, there might be a couple things that you could pick up on. Like, okay, yeah, oh, right. Well, yeah, no wonder he's not seeing he's actually not seeing his family. His family's not there. But
I do think it's harder. I do think it's harder in a comic book than it is in a movie to kind of do that thing. But it is doable. It's also, I think, more common in movies than it is in comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100% there. Batman does show up. I mentioned Batman. Batman shows up for like a quick second to essentially pound the Joker's face.
I love Batman books that don't have Batman in them.
He shows up for like a quick second. Joker does this thing where he's like, you got to choose me, or you got to choose so-and-so who's going to, Dr. Arnell, who's going to go home and kill his family.
Boy, is that going to come up again.
Yes, it is. But Batman shows up there at the home. And of course, at that point, when I think it's obviously when he recognizes his son being in the same room, that's when Dr. Arnell, drops the gun. And he's like,
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this before. Robert and I have talked about this before. It's a common enough subject over the years that we've been doing this. The concept of like the one bad day.
Oh, yeah.
You and I don't remember which show it was, but you and I just kind of going back and forth. Oh, it might have been one of the David Simon shows, as a matter of fact. Because I remember thinking, like, we think we have it all. We have family, we have jobs, we have, stability, we have homes, we have stuff. You think you think you've got it, and you're like, well, I would never do anything crazy. This is where you get the people who do crazy, horrible things. They should be thrown in a dungeon and killed, locked there forever, in that order. And then you lose your job, you lose your family, you lose your home. That concept of like the one bad day, that falling down thing. And then you really, are you Job? Are you able to turn the other cheek? Are you able to stay, devoted to God and in His Word? Or do you become the Joker?
Mm-hmm.
Do you become a murderer or something in between? Do you give in the drug addiction? Do you end up just lying in an alley somewhere, somewhere in Italy, and getting, raped by your rich employer. That's a nod to The Brutalist, by the way.
Oh, okay, got it.
That was, in case Robert's watching, that was a wink at him. Rape the manhood back into you. What?
I don't understand.
Stop it, Guy Pearce.
You are putting manhood in me, but wait.
This is not the way, Guy Pearce. This is not the way. Anyway, so you go into this thing like, I'm a learned, educated man. I have a family. I have my wits about me. I am, a master of psychology. And then you walk in, you meet the Joker, and it's more than one bad day.
Yeah,
and then you're painting your face like the Ultimate Warrior and running around killing people.
I think what Lemire does, he's just tremendously well in this book, is, when you go insane, the fact that you may not know you're going insane is probably going to be what occurs. You are going to have no idea.
Because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you.
You're not going to know. And I think that's what's scariest about this book is Dr. Arnell has no idea, and nobody else would. I don't think many other people would either. The descent into madness is sometimes slow, methodical, and it is also the person who is going mad is not aware of it.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. So I think that's what's done very well here. The one bad day that you're talking about, he had the one bad day, and it just kind of started to snowball out of that, down. So Jeff Lemire.
And then it's like how sane are you really? Because you think you're really sane. You think you've got it all together. You think you have.
What other people don't sometimes. Other people don't know what you know. That's the thing too. Is like you
have a resilience made of steel, and it turns out it's made of straw.
Mm-hmm.
Put more than a little weight on it, and it collapses. But you think you had the resilience, you had resilience made of steel. You think you can handle the weight of somebody like the Joker, and then it turns out you can't.
No.